We said at the same time.
I usually try to do that. Welcome back to the Volly House Podcast, episode
29.
29.
We are almost there to 30.
Yep. We are here at Kolka Studios. So if you need a firehouse built, give them a call. Download the Firewire app, available on iOS and Android. Go to volleyhousepodcast.com to ask us questions or send in stories or videos you'd like us to review. Also, give us a follow on all social media platforms at Volly House Podcast. And also, we got Ryan Mackey on the sticks today. Thank you, Ryan. You're allowed to talk from there. You don't have to keep quiet.
And we're getting a lot of submissions, which is awesome. So we got a lot to talk about tonight.
Oh, we do.
And we'll get in what we can, and then
we'll go from there.
we can always do it in the next episode. But it's great that people are following us and sending us information, and we can.
Yeah, a lot to talk about today.
We're going to solve everybody's problems tonight.
We'll try.
Doubt it.
Let's start with iCommand board. We had them right next to you.
All right. Hold on, I got to make room. Sorry.
So every video we see from a career department incident shows an incident command board on scene. Yet, in many NIOSH LODD reports, a recurring finding is the lack of proper incident command. As a chief in the volunteer fire service, your responsibility is to ensure the safety of everyone operating at every incident. Gone are the days of managing this in your head or on a simple whiteboard. The owner of iCommand Board, a volunteer fire chief, took this challenge head-on by developing a professional tool tailored for volunteer fire officers. These command boards are designed with size, affordability, and most importantly, accountability at the forefront. Packed with critical information and checklists, they're built to help you stay organized and focused at every event. Visit iCommandBoard.com today and take the next step in ensuring the safety and success of your department. And obviously,
do the best I can. He was here.
Yeah, if you saw last episode, really kind of went through it, explained how it worked,
where it came from, why.
Yeah, and
what it's all about. I think it's great.
Yeah, and
we're looking at getting one of these. Put it on our 80 car, so we have an extra one around in case there's
awesome.
No chiefs.
And he said, since he's been with us, said his sales have gone up, his Instagram and
a lot of followers,
social media following's gone up. So we have spaces available. So if you'd like to advertise with us, send us a DM on social media, or you could send in a form, volleyhousepodcast.com.
Any business.
Any business. Yep.
We'll take Verizon.
Yeah.
Oh, am I allowed to say that? Oh.
Well, what are they? I'm not. Yeah, we're not plugging them.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. No, that guy. He went red coat on them.
No, he left.
What did he go to? One of the other providers and use like the same shtick. So that's pretty funny.
Stuff. Goes where the money is, I guess.
Yeah, you gotta at this point, right?
We'll take it.
Let's go into suspended or not.
Frontline Optics.
Frontline Optics. Use code.
Another company that's done very well with us.
Yeah, VHP15. Frontlineoptics.com. Use code VHP15 for 15% off. So I was buzzing around on the internet, just kind of looking at the millions of stories of firefighters getting suspended around the country. This one, not like a funny one, but a firefighter gets suspended for 15 days after refusing a, quote, dangerous training that led to the death of a firefighter a few years prior.
What? Say that again?
A firefighter got suspended for 15 days.
Right.
Because he refused to do a dangerous training from... It's the same training that a firefighter died from.
So they started a training because a firefighter died?
No. It was the same training.
Oh, the same training.
Yeah. And this firefighter refused to do that training because it killed a firefighter.
Because he didn't want to get hurt or killed.
Yeah, and he got suspended for refusing the training. I thought that was an interesting one because I feel like there's two sides there to play.
Well, there's a lot to it. I mean, why did the person die? Was it due to the training or was it due to medical reasons?
It's a good question. Didn't get that far into it.
Yeah.
You know how like a lot of these...
I mean, we talked about physical fitness a little bit. You have to be in pretty good shape, both mentally and physically, in order to perform this job. So what were the implications, or what happened during that training that this firefighter died? And obviously, they're continuing this training, so there's a reason why. And, people die for all different reasons. We've seen probationary firefighters die in training due to medical reasons or overexertion, stuff like that, or was it actually the training that caused that? Now, I would feel there would be a big investigation after a firefighter dies in training, obviously. So, maybe that wasn't the root cause of the incident or what happened. But I don't know how you can refuse training that is required. If it's required, I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah, very. You know how a lot of these stories go?
No, I know. Like,
it's very vague in the articles.
Some of them are very vague, and there's two sides to every story. I mean, a firefighter died in training upstate New York at the fire academy a couple of years back. What department was that? I can't remember. It might have been Watertown or something. I forget. But probationary training or, career academy passed, and there was a whole big investigation of what happened or why they came down on the instructors. There was a lot that was involved in that one. I mean, obviously, any line of duty death, they're going to do a huge investigation.
Obviously.
So
what's weird to me, though, it's 15-day suspension.
Yeah, I don't.
Odd.
Yes and no. I mean, it seems the norm is 15, 30, a week, 2 weeks, days, depending on if it's career, volunteer, stuff like that. That was a volunteer firefighter?
It just said firefighter gets suspended, and that this firefighter was fighting against his suspension, saying that it wasn't warranted for suspension. So there is two sides to each story.
There's three
I like
sides.
the points that, three sides for sure. I like the points that you brought up. What was the cause of death for this one firefighter? Mm-hmm. And obviously, if they're still giving the training, then there must have been an investigation done that said it wasn't due directly to what we're doing in this training.
Yeah, well, otherwise the training would have been changed, or
revised.
More supervision or whatever. They always come up with something. I think the NIOSH CDC reports of line of duty deaths are very important to firefighters, and I know a lot of people don't read them, they don't look at them. Billy Goldfeder shares a lot of great information on the secret list through firefighterskclosecalls.com. You should look that up. Billy, hopefully we'll get him on the show eventually. But it's very interesting when you read those reports. I mean, they talk to all the firefighters involved. Excuse me, whether it's training or not, whether it's fire. But there's a lot of good information. I mean, the story goes along and tells the timeline and everything else of what happened, but they also put recommendations in the end. And I think the recommendations are very important, that we look at these recommendations of how to try to prevent the next tragedy or line of duty death. Like, how do we fix that? So, I think it's very important. I think if you've never looked at these reports, these CDC NIOSH reports for line of duty deaths, you should. Just pull it out, take a look. Some of them are medically related. Some of them are actual collapses, fire, smoke, running out of air, stuff like that. But it'll show you where the firefighters were found, what they were doing, what happened, was RIT involved, were they pulled out, all the different information. And then it goes into, sometimes, it's command issue, accountability issue, radio communications. The three that I always look at and harp on a lot is the communications, accountability, and water supply. Those are three big things that come up a lot, and we should be working on how to correct those more and more. But if you have the time, you can Google search it, look up CDC NIOSH line of duty fatal fire reports, and just go through a couple of them and see where you can learn or evolve your training to make it better. So I don't know all the parameters in this. What'd I do? You're counting already?
Yeah.
Jesus. He loves count.
It's an evolve. It's one.
Evolve. Okay. We're going to get a little clicker. Click, 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 click. But like I was saying, it's important that we learn from past incidents so that we don't repeat the same thing. And we do repeat a lot of these injuries, deaths, and stuff over and over again because we don't learn the first time around. So this training program, whatever it is, obviously was probably looked at. They probably figured out what was good, bad, or anything else, or if they had to make changes. So this firefighter refusing to do that, I think is, maybe a suspension is warranted.
Okay.
But without all the information, it's tough.
Right. I think you put up a lot of good points, though. It all makes sense.
I try.
You try. Job of the week.
Job of the week. Oh, I can take my glasses off now.
Oh, you can take your glasses off.
Well, Selden just had a job this afternoon.
Yeah, so...
I guess around 1 o'clock today, I guess.
And what were...
So I don't know all the parameters. I did not go to the job. Looked like... no, not Selden. Selden was the other night. They had one at midnight or whatever, somewhere around there. That was Saturday night. I was out of town. We did send an engine over. Originally, it was the ladder, and then they changed it. They wanted an engine, so we sent an engine crew over. My guys from Hook and Ladder got out. Awesome once again. Make it over there. Today, Quorum had a job. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But Quorum had a job today, and I was looking at some of the information. They had 2 burst lengths on the first 2 lines going into the building, which is it's odd. It does happen,
2 burst lengths is odd, for sure.
It's very odd. So, the question comes in, like, what happened? Was it, failure of not testing our hose properly? Did we overpressurize it? Did we snag it or break it? There's so many factors that go into it. And I've been at jobs where these things have happened. Plate glass falling at a, taxpayer fire that cut through the hose line, or a, roll down gate that fell that crushed it and broke it, or, sometimes these things happen. So, the question is, right away, it's like, what happened? So what I got out of it so far, and I was not there, the first 2 lines, fire wound up through the roof at some point. I guess they had solar panels on the roof, which, is something else that we're dealing with now on a regular basis. But hot molten metal, either from the solar panels or the brackets that hold the solar panels, came down and landed on the line, hot molten metal, and burned through the lines.
I wonder what kind of metal they're using.
It's probably aluminum.
I was going to say aluminum.
I think it's aluminum. I have solar panels in my house. I believe it's aluminum brackets.
Damn, they melted.
Melted and came down and
burned
through the line.
holes.
So, when we talk about,
Is it a peaked roof on the front, I imagine?
I believe, I looked at the picture earlier. It was peaked roof, 2-story building.
Fire through the roof?
I believe that was one of the reports, fire through the roof. So I'm assuming. Like I said, I wasn't there, so I don't have all the details. And I didn't get a chance to look at it. It's only been a few hours.
It's another one of those newer things.
Well, there's always that possibility of hose lines being burned through.
I'm talking about the solar panels, like the brackets melting off.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before,
Yeah.
so this is something new, something to think about. Like I said, I hate to be the what-if guy all the time, but, like, what if, now this is something for other departments to start thinking about, like, okay, what do we do if this happens? Have you practiced changing out a burst length? Getting another piece of hose, putting it into play, and we do this in training, and, when we first start learning to be firefighters, where do you add the length of hose if you're short? Do you add it at the engine or the pumper, or do you add it towards the nozzle end, or do you add it in the middle? Like, that's training that you can figure out what's the best avenue if you're stretched and short.
Right.
Because if we do it at the pump panel, now all that other hose already has water in it, so to move that forward is going to be harder. So you got to think about these things and figure out, like, if we have a burst length, what are we going to do? Are we stretching another line? Can we get another line off that first do rig? Do we have to go to a second do rig? Can we get an extra length of hose? Where are we going to get that extra length of hose? Do we have one rolled up in a compartment? Are we pulling it off the back, the side, or whatever? But how are we going to replace that hose length? And how are we going to get more water into play? So you figure your first line and your backup line. So the backup line, which is supposed to support the first do line, both of those burn through. Now what? Now you got no water.
And I mean, I know you said you didn't get like a ton of information on it.
No, I just got a little bit.
Do you know by any chance if they had 2 teams already committed inside.
That I don't know.
Be interested to hear that because
Yeah.
I remember.
Well, when they come in quick like this and then things happen and you're like, why? And then you're
Yeah, you always wanna know
I
why.
texted somebody real quick. I'm like, 2 burst lengths. What the hell is the deal? Molten metal. I
I
was
tell
like,
you,
wow.
it gets scary.
It gets hairy.
When you run out of water. I remember years back, we were at a fire. One of my guys was upstairs. It was a mutual aid that we went to, I think, to Central Islip, and it was in the middle of the winter, and the hydrant froze up
Yep.
and stopped the water supply, and those guys got caught in a flash.
Yep.
Luckily, got out with minor burns, but the one kid, he's now a city fireman, but he was a probie at the time. He got caught in the flash, and it cooked his helmet. And he got back to the fire. I saw the guys like, "Oh, look, he's all salty." This
Put
guy
it in
'cause
the oven.
his helmet was cooked, and he's just a probie. So it was just, it gets scary up there if you run out of water. So I'd be curious.
Yeah, and the burst length, like how bad is the burst length? Can I still
Are you
flow
still
some
getting-
water?
yeah, you still get some
Is it
pressure.
burned bad enough that I can't get water through it? But any reduction in water flow or gallons per minute is a problem.
Yep.
So that's something you have to consider. And how do we get a backup line in place? Now, is the fire now roaring out of control? Can we control it? Do we have these are all factors that come into play. It looks like everybody was already out of the building, so that wasn't a factor where you worried about civilians being trapped or firefighters, that badly, I guess. But
you also got to. This is where communication's big too. When you have
well,
your
that's
nozzle
a
man,
mayday. You lose water, that's a mayday message.
you'd go with a full blown mayday for losing water, or just an urgent back out.
Well, urgent if you're having water problems, but I mean, if you're
Full-blown
literally
loss of water.
loss of water and you have fire at you, that's gonna be.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
100%.
We're backing out. Like that's
For sure.
You're
what
out.
I'm saying though is because sometimes your backup man or the point man might not feel it right away. And say if you're in like a basement fire or something like that. Well, now you got to communicate to your guys to get back up the stairs. And you've been to fires before where it could be a little bit of a clusterfuck on the stairs. So just certain things to keep in mind. Anytime you're doing hose drills or anything like that, always talk to your members about communication.
Yeah.
With everything. Yeah. You need more line.
I mean, right away, a water loss would be more of an urgent. But, I mean, if you get to the point where you're in a basement, you're trapped, or you're out of water, if you got fire coming after you, you're going to have to give a mayday at some point.
For sure.
If you're
gotta be
totally out. But
clear
I would
about
be
it.
very clear, urgent message, we lost water or we lost pressure, what's going on? Do I need to back out? And then
My only
go from
concern with calling a mayday like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't call a mayday right away. I'd go
Yeah.
with an urgent first, depending on the severity of the situation.
Because you call a mayday, now everyone.
I usually call urgents way before maydays.
Yeah, for sure. Because you call mayday, first off, all your own guys that know which team is calling the mayday, they're going to start running to your location. The RIT team's going to be sent into that location.
Probably,
Now you could wind up with an actual.
Yeah, I'd go with
mayday.
an urgent. Water loss urgent.
Drill of the week.
Drill of the week. Already on that. Did we talk about the Levittown fire last week?
Yes.
We did, with the guys bailing out.
Yeah. So they did a solid job.
That was good. Yeah. Drill of the week. So
Do you want to talk about that drill that you mentioned to me that you're going to be doing? Because I
don't want to talk about that yet. I don't want to give people too much of a heads up.
Okay.
But we did a drill today, so we had a daytime department training on a Monday. Like you said, why on Monday? But
No, but it makes
we
sense.
do have some people that work nights, so we try to give drills every once in a while during the day.
That's key.
It's key.
That's something we talked about a few episodes ago because people were talking about what happens if you have a guy that
right.
can't,
Not
works
available
nights.
at night. Right.
So there's your answer for all the fucking keyboard warriors out there that, took that clip to heart and were like,
Yeah, we occasionally try to, obviously we do some weekend drills when people are around, but, we do have people that are off during the week, during the day. Not a ton, but, we get some people. So we got a handful of people today. And we did a foam drill. So we did some classroom inside, about 40 minutes. We went over how foam works, what it's all about, why we do what we do, foam blankets, bank down, rain down, roll on, the whole 9 yards, and how it works, smothers, separates, suppresses, vapors, all that good stuff. And then we went outside. We set up an inline foam reductor off the pump panel, stretched one length of hose, flowed some training foam because you're not allowed to
I was just gonna say, what
flow
you
real
use,
foam
like
anymore. So we
dish
use
soap?
training foam. No, but we have a bunch of 5-gallon cans of training foam, and we set up the line. We operated, made a nice foam blanket out in the back of the firehouse, and flushed it all out and went home. But it was a nice little drill.
Dude, a few years ago, we had a car fire into the woods. Car was flipped over on fire. We pull up, and it was on Jericho Turnpike. It's a highway. 2 telephone poles cracked, wires across the road. Car flipped over into the woods, into an embankment, is on fire. So they tell us, get down there, see if you could find a body, if there's somebody pinned in that. And the car was fully involved. And it reeked of gasoline. So immediately we apply foam. So we put it out, and I'm close to the car, and I'm trying to get like underneath to see if I see a person in there. And we couldn't really see, so we're getting the tools down there to start like cutting open some doors or whatever. And one of the guys drops like the little platform, drops it into the foam, and I get soaked with foam. And the first fucking thing that popped in my head was that goddamn commercial.
Yep.
You know, you may be entitled to compensation.
I was just going to bring up that commercial.
Yeah, I was like, fuck, man.
I think about all the times I was in foam or, New York City, we use the Hi-X foam, so you have a bad, stubborn basement fire. They would use these injectors with fans, and they put all this Hi-X foam in there, and half the time we'd burn more of the building down. It was crazy. But, sometimes you go in there, like, hey, go in there and check it out, see if the fire's out, or whatever, and you're like walking through this foam crap everywhere.
Thing that sucked about
And
that is
then I see that commercial on TV, I'm like,
they were breaking my balls so hard about that. They're like, oh, money shot, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
like, it wasn't even
money
my
shot all
fucking
over.
fault. It was you guys, you fucking idiots.
But it's important to train on foam, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting that last night I just happened to be flipping on Instagram, like checking things out, checking on the Volly House Podcast, make sure we're doing well. No, but I flip it on, and the first thing that comes up is a firefighter with a motorcycle on fire. Did you see that?
Was
It was
it
up last night.
up on the kickstand?
It was up, and
Yeah.
it starts spraying, water on it or whatever, put it out, and then the motorcycle falls over, and then you see the gasoline just start lighting up the lawn and the ground, and then he's
shit.
trying to hit it some more. Then he moves over, and then there's like a garbage can there, and then it's like on fire underneath the firefighter, and he's trying to hit it, and all of a sudden you see the foam come out of the line. So most likely, I'd have to say, probably is an onboard foam system on that engine to get foam out of it that quick.
Right.
But that's one thing we don't practice. A lot of these cars now, they're plastic gas tanks. So whether you have a car accident, a car fire, that thing splits open and it just dumps. The old steel ones, sometimes you get a little tear in it, it'll drip or leak a little bit, but usually it didn't have a catastrophic failure while you're operating. And now we're getting these catastrophic failures while operating. So how are you going to handle that situation? And I try to teach people, and always park the rig not downhill of a car fire or a car accident, whether the car rolls, whether it takes off, whether the gas tank lets go, you're not in that path. So, position the rig out of the way or up the hill, operate from uphill, upwind if you can. It sounds like hazmat. Oh my God, it is hazmat. But this way, if that gas tank lets go, you're out of harm's way. Okay,
Yeah.
so we had many times where these gas tanks during car fire would just let go, and running down the street. Now you have multiple cars on fire, and it's like, well, how am I going to get foam on this real quick? Like, you want to do it right then and there. Now, if I have to set up an inline adductor, that's going to take a couple minutes. I got to either stretch a new line, or I got to shut down that line to put that foam adductor on and get it all set up. So what do? The best thing to do is actually just take the foam can, crack the top, and pour it right in front of your nozzle. And if you pour it in front of your nozzle, it will instantly start to create some foam blanket, and you can start pushing it kind of like roll-on method. Or just dump a puddle of it on the ground and hit it with the nozzle back and forth, and it creates instant foam. Okay, but that's what you're going to need to do, because it's going to take time to set up a inline foam adductor. So some people they swear by onboard systems. I tend to like the inline, and reason being is we have these onboard systems. They cost a lot of money to have on the rig, and we barely ever use them. So the foam gets caked up in there. It's old. We don't use the system much. But it's nice that you can just pull that lever and get foam instantaneously out of it. So it's something that your department has to consider of where's the money worth. Do I want to put a foam system on? Do I not? Is it easier carrying cans and inline adductors, which that's what we went to, and it works for us,
Yeah, to your point with the gas tanks letting go, or if it's just a simple tear where it's leaking out. We had one over by the 4th Precinct a few years back. It was a full tank of gasoline that had let go and sort of going down the hill a little bit, and we were parked away from it, but the problem was you had flaming gasoline heading toward a sewer.
Yep.
So then we're like,
and then
okay.
it takes off from there.
Yeah, and if it gets into the sewer, now you got to get some other agencies involved.
Yep.
Which becomes a whole big fucking process.
Well, they're going to get involved anyway, so anything that goes into storm drain or sewage.
But we, at that point, were like, we have to dam up, make sure it's not going to get...
Diking.
And while we were doing that is when we set up the foam inductor. Mm-hmm. And, took 2 seconds, shut the line down, disconnected, put the inductor in, threw it in the bucket, and we went through quite a few buckets.
Yeah.
Because it was, if you have a car with a full tank of gasoline, it's not going to go out as easy as you think it will.
No, our cars, we have the same car, it's a 21-gallon fuel tank.
Yeah.
So that's 20 gallons if you think about it. And if you look at some of these bigger vehicles, the trucks or even minivans, stuff like that, like some of these can have up to 40 gallons.
It was a minivan. Just
some of them can have up to 40 gallons of gas in them, depending on the vehicle. A lot of the minivans, they don't need as much. They get pretty good gas mileage. But I had an old Ford pickup. I still have another one now, but my original one had 2 fuel tanks. It had a front and rear tank. You could switch it over.
Interesting.
So the one tank was a little smaller than the other one, but combined it was over 40 gallons of fuel.
That's a lot.
Those were steel tanks. They're not plastic and stuff like that, but that's what we're dealing with out there now. So you have to be prepared of how you're going to handle these types of situations, and we don't practice enough with foam. So
yes, get
once
out
again,
there.
expect the unexpected and be prepared.
That is true.
The other thing too is like you talked about going through, the cans, those 5-gallon cans. It's foam concentrate actually. We call it foam, but it's foam concentrate. You go through a considerable amount sucking through that adductor.
Oh yeah.
And if you ever try these things in practice, and I was showing the guys today when we did it, we just flowed maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and we were already halfway through a 5-gallon can. So I'm like, that's how much. So when you look at a 3% solution, it's 3% foam, 97% water. It's majority water, but still you're sucking that through. And then if you go to 6% for like chemicals or polar solvents, here it's 6% solution, 94% water, but you're going to go through it that much faster.
Yeah.
So you have to start with enough foam concentrate. You should have enough on hand before you even start the operation.
And also too, if you are even considering a foam operation for anything, figure out which department near you is the foam bank, because like you said, you go through it real quick. Some departments might only carry 2 buckets of foam on an engine or something like that, and they don't have any reserve foam there. And usually there's a department or area.
There's a bunch,
that has,
we're on Long Island, so it's a little different. But
here.
if you put in the call to
or the airport,
if you call the county Firecom and say that we need multiple, they'll know exactly who to call. Just say the word. We need a lot of foam. Start sending it. But you got to be careful. And we went through this whole problem with the foam being bad for us, bad for the environment and everything else. So hopefully everybody got rid of all of that by now. But moving on.
Let's get into some of these topics.
Yeah, we got a lot of topics.
First one: how to deal with low turnout for midnight alarms.
That's a tough one.
I got a couple thoughts on this.
Yep, that is a tough one. My department, like I said, we started overnight duty crews. That's what we do. We have 3 companies, 3 stations. Each company does 2 nights a week. And then the 7th night, which is the Sunday, the duty company of the month takes care of every Sunday night as well. So we get a minimum of 4 people that are required to respond between 10 at night and 4 in the morning, or 11 and 5. They get to choose what they want to do, what works for the members. But we guarantee at least 1 engine on the road, which is good.
Right.
So that's how we've handled it. There are departments that have put some paid people on at night to try to handle those types of situations. But we find the crews work pretty good for us. 6 hours gets a point from home. They respond from home. They're not in-house. In-house crews, we do 4 hours, and then you sit in the firehouse and you get a point for that.
I for sure think that's the best option, is the overnight, just assign a company, a duty crew. However, it seems like your department is pretty good with the duty crews. It seems like there's a lot of camaraderie in each of those companies.
We've done it for a while. I mean, it's taken its toll.
For sure.
Obviously a station that has less members, it's more difficult for them to get a crew every 2 nights a week.
I think there's multiple variables to this. And one important one, I think, is camaraderie. If you have a good company that's got a lot of guys that are ready to go, they want to go on calls, that builds good camaraderie, and the guys will get out. The other part of that, though, is the types of calls you're dealing with here. So if you're getting, a million ambulance calls in the middle of the night, yeah, you're going to be, that's at the very least an hour and a half of your night that you're losing sleep.
Correct.
And then, responding there, getting to the hospital, transferring patient, getting back, getting home, trying to fall back asleep. I get that. That's a whole different situation. If it's something fire related, like an automatic alarm that you go to constantly, I can understand where that becomes a problem too. And there are certain departments out there that have, if there's one particular spot they're going to for an automatic alarm constantly, sometimes they'll change that to, say, a chief's investigation.
Chief's investigation, right.
Or it gets held offline if it's, okay, this is a known problem. Hey.
It depends on the scenario,
Yeah.
obviously,
I know we had a restaurant in our district that every time they had this plate that came out sizzling, every fucking time they brought that thing out of the kitchen, it would set the alarm off. Mm-hmm. Full department response, automatic fire alarm at this restaurant. And finally the chiefs went there and they're like, they brought the fire marshal in. They're like, something has to change here because we're getting activated. So what we're going to do now is, for this particular zone that goes off all the time and it's the same thing, chief's investigation. If it happens to be a water flow alarm,
right, or different detectors,
then you activate us for full department response.
Right. And that can be done, and then, the other side of it's EMS. We talk a lot about fire on here, but, a lot of the volunteer departments handle EMS as well. So, how do you cover that? So, with us, we have paid EMS pretty much. We have an ambulance on duty 24/7 and a medic in a fly car as well. So we have 2 medics on, a medic in the ambulance with an EMT, medic in a fly car, that's 24/7. But we also have ambulance duty crews at night.
You have
volunteers.
An ambulance company?
No.
No.
They're part of the individual companies, yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. So, we don't always have an ambulance duty crew at night. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We try to. Some companies are better than others, depending. Like I said, my company does. We're the good company right now. We get out a lot, and our EMS people are pretty solid, and they usually run an ambulance duty crew when we do an engine, which is nice. So they don't come out for the first alarm, because the paid crew handles it. It's only if there's a second call.
I think that seems to be the way most departments are going now. Everyone that, for the most, or the departments that are really busy with EMS have gone to pretty much that paid system, right, where we got a duty crew on, then you have people bringing in.
There's still a lot that don't on Long Island,
for sure.
Or they have one person, and you still need a driver or something, It's just very dependent on the district, how busy they are, like you said, and what is really needed.
So all in all, for that, to deal with low turnout for midnight alarms?
Well, there's other things. There's other options. I mean, we were talking about duty crews, but, there are people that give incentives to their members, whether it's, paid per call instead of low SAP, or paid per call in addition to, or gas cards. there are other ways to do it, or if people turn out at night, they get something extra. You know, so
sure.
there are ways that you can incentivize and help people that come out at night. We like to give out awards and trophies and plaques and all this stuff. Like, I don't need another plaque to put on my wall, but how do you get people or entice them to come out in the middle of the night? So there's a lot of ways you can skin the cat.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a good start is if you can implement the duty crews,
I think that's the best thing.
build up your company morale or your department morale, because guys want to come out if everyone gets along and everyone's amped up to do the same thing. That's how you're going to get your guys out consistently for the most part. And also, I think we've said it here before, make the firehouse fun again.
Yes.
Because when I was younger at the firehouse, me and the guys were down there till the wee hours of the night, probably causing some trouble.
Well, you were single, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is now, I mean, even with
Your wife's not
younger
going to
guys,
let
I mean,
you out anymore.
Ryan's a younger guy. I know your company is buzzing with younger guys, so I'm sure they hang out down there. Obviously, there's certain rules for probies and stuff like that, but yeah, we were down there till sometimes like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Call came in, we were out. We were out the door.
Yeah.
So
If there is a way that you can entice the membership to be in the house, like we said, it's going to be the best response, the quickest response, and it makes it fun. Like we said, my company tonight, we have our duty crews 6 to 10. They have dinner. Some extra members come down usually and hang out. I think it's a tough week this week. A lot of people are on vacation right now, but it's fun going down there and breaking shoes and talking
we
to
used
each
to do
other.
also, if the call came in, younger crew, we didn't have a chauffeur, we would text our company group chat, hey, we just need a driver. And if somebody knew, all right, these guys are down here, they're full of piss and vinegar, let me go down. I'll come down, I'll drive the truck.
Yeah.
Next topic, battery energy storage systems.
Oh,
This has been
you want to bring that up?
yeah, this has been a monster topic.
After what I was talking to the guy at the FASNY conference the other day? You missed that.
Oh, yeah, I probably left
So
that
Tyler and I went to the FASNY conference, which was in Hauppauge the other day. We stopped in and talking to some vendors and friends of ours and stuff. It was fun. But there was a guy there talking about energy storage systems. And he goes, oh, you want to learn about it? I said, I know a little bit. I'm not too happy with this stuff. They want to put it in my neighborhood and, just like they're trying to do in Hauppauge here. And, it's something that you're going to have to get a lot of training in. And it's ever evolving. It's changing. I said evolve again. That's
too.
It's changing as we go. Okay? It's changing as we go. But between the lithium-ion batteries, energy storage systems, solar panels that we're dealing with now, and whatever the next thing is to come, it's going to be an issue for us. And are we prepared? We're really not prepared. No. We're not. Firefighters are getting a little better at handling these cars with the batteries. It's not the best, but there's some devices out there now that you can put under the car and help cool it. Not that water is always the answer either when we're dealing with batteries and electricity, but it does work of cooling them down and trying to keep the thermal runaway from happening. But we're going to have to stay on top of our game with this stuff. And cars in general, just getting back to cars, change every day as well. The steels that they're using, the borons and everything else is going to be a major problem. Obviously, we've changed a lot of our tools to cut these cars, but you got to be very careful just cutting or spreading or doing anything to a car nowadays, because you hit the wrong wire or the wrong thing or crush a battery, you're going to start a fire.
Right. I mean, if you saw the video we posted on our story yesterday of that lithium-ion battery going up the guy with his ass crack
Happens
out.
all the time.
It was on.
Yeah, right.
It was on our stories, but if you guys want to see it, you go to Firefighter Proving Grounds Instagram page. It was on there, but literally seconds. And we talked about this already, how fast it flashes, and you're talking about a battery energy storage system. One of those things goes
a lot different.
And the one thing, I know Hauppauge is pushing against it for the one here in the industrial park, which I don't blame them, because if people knew half the shit that was in this industrial park, and one of those things goes on fire and catches the building next door to it that has way more explosive shit.
I got to say, they've come a long way with energy storage systems.
Oh, I'm sure they have, but
the safety that's involved, the batteries that are involved, I agree. We've come a long way from where it's been, and you can look up some of these past events. There was one out in, I believe it was Paradise, Arizona, I think was one of the ones. They had a fire out there. The fire department responded. It was in a metal storage container. The captain went over to open the door to check it out because it seemed like it was starting to burn down and it was less smoke, and he thought it was over. And when he went to open the door, the thing exploded. And he woke up unconscious in a fence. Like he went through a fence underneath it. Like it threw him so far.
Did we open up the door to cause a backdraft?
Yeah, just let enough oxygen and it popped or something like that. I forget. It's been a long time since I watched the video and read about it. But it was a major thing. But they learned from that they weren't vented enough, these storage systems, the containers and stuff like that. So, like I said, I won't say it again, but it's moving forward. It's changing as we go. So they learned from events like that and those explosions. But that whole crew got knocked out cold just from the explosion, and they were out there by themselves. I think it was a single engine response, if I remember correctly. Don't count me on all this stuff.
Was that the one? It was kind of in the middle of
it was
nowhere?
in the middle of the desert or something.
Yeah, but, I do remember.
But it was very dangerous. So anytime we deal with electricity, whether it's an electric substation, high tension lines, battery storage systems, batteries in general, be very careful. We talked about this with the phones, right? Buy the proper cord for your phone. Buy the proper battery for your computer. When we buy certain products, even if you're buying it on Amazon, it could be a knockoff model from China somewhere that's coming to you. You think it's legit, and it's not.
Well,
somebody told me not too long ago about Motorola radios. Got a Motorola radio. They bought a Motorola radio that said Motorola on it and everything, and it was like a Chinese knockoff.
If I'm not mistaken, I think last night, Hauppauge had a phone on fire.
Cell phone?
Cell phone, yeah.
It happens.
Was it you guys? No? Maybe somebody different. But yeah,
But these things do happen a lot. So, whether it's a battery for the camera on your house, a battery for a toy, or one of these kiddie toys, those driving mobiles or whatever, these are lithium-ion batteries or other types of batteries that they're buying. These electric scooters and carts, that's where we're seeing a lot of these problems. But if they're overcharged, if they're undercharged, if they're getting too much charge too quickly, if you damage the battery, you can overheat these things very quickly. If it's in your car sitting in the sun with all that extra heat, have you seen some of these batteries even on our radios? They start to bulge out, they get bigger.
Yeah.
That's a problem. The battery's going bad, or it's starting to, compromise itself. So you have to consider all this. And you think about Chief's cars, even my car. I keep a couple radios in my car all the time. It gets really hot. It's very possible that battery could go on fire.
For sure.
So you have to be careful. So energy storage systems, that's the newest, biggest thing. They want to put these things in every single town in America.
Yeah.
And ways to store power if the grid goes down, that they could back feed out or whatever they're going to do with it. But they are getting a lot better. They are writing a lot of codes. Paul Rogers, former lieutenant from Hazmat in New York City, is very involved with the codes and protecting firefighters and letting people know what goes on. And he's not the only one, but he's a major person that is pushing to ensure the firefighters' safety. So, you got to contact some of these companies, get as much information as you can. Paul and his crew, I have the name, it's in my head, I can't even think of his company, but they will go around and help you, train you and teach you about these things. But you need to get a good understanding. Now, are we going to have all the answers? Is it going to change as we go? It's going to. So stay up to date. And there's a lot of online training programs you can go take on your own and learn about these systems and what they do and how to handle problems.
Absolutely. Next topic. High leadership not allowing qualified members the opportunity to promote.
So leadership of the department not allowing people to promote. Or is it Volleys? They're not.
This is verbatim.
They're
How
elected.
it was.
Yeah, that's tough.
So I don't know if this means
Like, are they appointed leaders or are they
high leadership
elected?
not allowing qualified members the opportunity to promote. I kind of took it as, yeah, maybe it's like that. Like they're these appointed leaders.
We'd probably have to get a little more information to really talk about that. I mean, I can give you my 2 cents in certain things. Like I see the way some people promote or get people promoted, whether it's paid or volunteer, if you're moving people up the ranks. In the volunteer service, for the most part, it's an election. It's not like that everywhere. So, I'll just say here, we elect our officers. Sometimes they are good, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're a person just filling a seat, which is not always the best. I've seen, obviously in New York City, we have promotional tests. That's how you get promoted. But there are places where you take tests and then you have to go for a interview. And, you speak to senior leadership, city council, sometimes city mayors and stuff like that, depending on what's going on. And if you don't do well in the interview, you don't get promoted. So even though you can do well on a test, you can still. Or sometimes it's just you put in for a position. If you meet all the requirements, you go for an interview, and they pick the person they want, which is good and bad, because I think good people do get passed over sometimes because, well, I don't like Tyler, or Tyler pushes me too hard, so I'm not going to promote him because he's going to give me more of a hard time when he's an officer. So that is an issue. That is a problem. And, if you have good people that you're not promoting just because you don't like them, or you're afraid that they're not going to do everything that you want, that is bad mojo.
For sure.
I
feel
can
like
tell you straight out, that's bad mojo.
I've seen, for the most part, any fire department that I was in that went through an election process, there were a lot of really good questions that were asked. For the most part, I felt like most people that were elected into certain positions were very well vetted. And I know that's not how it is everywhere, but even with me as a young officer that I was running, like I sat down with a lot of the senior guys saying, what's your plan for this? Like, why do you think you should be in this position? And, I had all the right things in mind, like I had the right heart for it. This is what I want to do. And once I got into that position, I realized, oh, maybe I won't be able to do some of the shit that I wanted to do because I have higher ups that will suppress certain things.
Right.
So I like the idea of, we have our not SOPs, our bylaws, where if you want to run for the officer position, you have to be qualified in X, Y, and Z, and you can't run for that position unless you are qualified, and then let the guys vote on you, based on that. So I think there's got to be like 2 tiers to that.
Well, there's different, like I said, there's a lot of different opinion. There's a lot of different ways and avenues to do things, and not everybody's meant to be a leader. You could be a great firefighter. I mean, top notch, and could be a shit officer.
Oh, for sure.
There are people that are just meant to be leaders or have been leaders for a long time, and they're very good at it. And there's others that go through and can be leaders a long time, and they suck.
You know what sucks that I really hate, but I don't fault these people, are the people that are really good firefighters, but they don't want the leadership position, but they're fantastic leaders. And it's like, oh, man, like you really need to be...
Yeah, I mean, listen, you don't have to have a rank to lead. You can lead from the back
but
seat.
There's some guys that it's like, hey, we want to put you in as an officer because
and
we
they
just
won't
have
do it.
seat fillers, and like, nah, I'm all good. Like, I'm cool being the guy in the back. They're very humble.
And that's part of the problem,
Yeah.
I mean, and you could see that on the career side and the volunteer side, but, more in the volunteer. We have a lot of repeat people in office again, which we would see every once in a while, but you didn't see it a lot. Now you see it a lot. Like, people just don't meet the requirements, or people do not want to take the proper courses. They do not want to be an officer. Whatever the deal is, it's more work. I can understand that. But, we need good leaders and we need good leadership. And a lot of people talk about leaders and leadership and this and that. And leadership is a major issue.
That seems to be the number.
A lot of people like to talk about it.
For instance,
but we got to be very cautious in putting people into office just to fill a seat. It doesn't solve your problems.
The next topic that I have correlates with this is micromanager chiefs.
Okay, well, I was going to get back into a little
ahead.
more, but yes, we can go right into that. So,
I just felt like you were kind of
so anyway, getting back to it, there are people that they will promote the people that will be the yes men for them.
Yes, that's very true.
And that is a big issue.
Agree.
If you always just tell people, Tyler, this is what I want done every single time, and you're going to say, yep, no problem, you're the chief, or you're the lieutenant, you're the captain, that is a big problem. You need people sometimes to be a devil's advocate, to not, I don't want to say go against you every time. It's not like that. It's how we can solve a problem to make it better. And if you're just going to be a yes man and just do exactly what that person wants, that will come back to haunt you. It will be a problem. You need people that will sometimes go, and I did it sometimes as a chief. I did it as a commissioner, where I was in total 100% agreement, and I go, hold on a second, guys. What if? And I'd be that what if guy, or I'd say, let's look at it from the firefighter's perspective. How is this going to be feeling for them? And they're like, what? Tell us the problem. I thought you were for this. And I'm like, I am for it. But let's just look at this from another angle. And I would do that a lot, or get somebody's opinion on it. Did I still go with what my first intention was? 98% of the time, my first intention was the right time. But every once in a while, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe we back off a little or change this to make it this way. Just because I tried to look at things from another aspect. And, it was the same thing with people getting in trouble or, issues like that, where I would say, they'd be like, John and Mike, and I go, whoa, I don't want to hear any names. Firefighter A, firefighter B, we'll worry about names later. Let's talk it out, how we would handle the situation with firefighter A and B. And then when we're done, they're like, oh, it's John and Mike. And I said, okay, so now let's take that into account into a little. I'm not saying, oh, we're being favoritism because we like this guy compared to this guy. It's like, let's put all the facts on the table blindly. And then look at everything else.
Right.
But don't change things or be like, oh, this is a good guy. He comes out all the time, so we're not going to do anything to him and suspend him. But we're going to suspend that person because they did the same exact thing, but we don't like that person.
Yeah, I mean, I have like a different outlook on that because I agree with you. Same thing. Somebody does the same thing, and you like one person, don't like the other, can't treat them differently.
You can't do that. And it's the same thing with like calling mutual aid. Like, I don't like the next district over, so I'm not going to call him because I got a feud with you. So I'm going to call the guy that's 400 miles away.
Right.
Not 400, but an extra 4 or 5 miles away. But, like that stupid nonsense petty stuff. So,
right.
And getting into micromanagement, it comes back to that. If you're constantly being the person that makes all the calls, when you're not there, nobody's going to be able to make any decisions on their own.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
They're going to be like, oh, you know what? We should call him. Oh, no, he's on vacation. So let's wait another week to make a decision because that person's not there. That is not a way to run a business.
The micromanager chiefs, the way I see it is a micromanager is somebody that's not confident in themselves. Or
they're afraid of other people. That's a possibility too.
There is that part of it. But the way I look at it is when I was an officer and somebody didn't perform up to standards, we would work on it. Hey, let's figure out what went wrong here and how we can make you better. That was always the first thing that I looked at. The second type of person, though, a micromanager, is somebody that's insecure about themselves.
Usually.
And they want to look good to their superior officers. And they don't trust fully that their subordinates are going to do the right thing. And that just, what they don't realize is that it fucks it up even more. Because like you said, that guy's not there. These guys don't know what they're doing.
Correct.
Now that guy looks bad.
Correct.
You should be training every one of your members. If you're an officer, lieutenant, captain, chief, whatever it is, You should be training all your subordinates how to be in your position.
Correct.
Have them thinking that way,
and that's the goal.
operating that way, yes.
The goal is to make sure that you're preparing somebody else to take your position.
100%.
You know, I could always rely on my guys at work. If God forbid, I got hurt or something else, somebody else could sit in that front seat and run that place, no problem. You know, because they understood what the job function was of that company. And it's the same thing, you know, when I was chief, and sometimes I was a hard ass. I'll say it, you know, I wasn't always right. I tried to always be right. But I knew that I trained my members well enough that I knew if I wasn't there, they can handle a situation. Right. And that's the ultimate goal. And, you know, recently, like I've been bringing up, even like the I-Command board and stuff like that, if all your chiefs are out of town, are your captains and lieutenants prepared to run an incident?
Exactly.
And are we preparing people to run it? And I say this a lot, like how deep is your bench? If you lose one person, and you know, we lost our chief driver, had a heart attack, passed away in my department. And he did a lot of stuff for the department. But there was nobody really ready to really take his position because, and a lot of people didn't understand it. And it's nothing against it. It's just that's the way we've done business. But you have to have people that are able to take over for you tomorrow. Whether you're a chief, whether you're an assistant chief, whether you're a captain, a lieutenant, you have to prepare the people below you. Mm-hmm. Training officer. You know, I'm trying to, you know, redo a lot of our training, but I'm trying to help and prepare other people to do these trainings and understand how it runs, that if something happens to me, tomorrow it can go flawless. And that's the ultimate goal. That's what I'm trying to prep for. So whether you're, like I said, a chauffeur, a firefighter, an officer, you got to be able to have people that can just take over in a moment's notice. So when you micromanage like that, and you constantly take over scenes, constantly take over other people's duties, constantly telling them what to do, they're all going to stand there and say, what am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do now?
Right. And the other part of it, too, is you have the people that it's like a job security thing. Well, if these guys know everything that I'm doing, then they can take my position. No, that's not the case. It's just you want them to be prepared.
Take it.
Yeah, but now I'm talking about an actual person that a lot of these people don't understand that they're micromanaging until somebody says something to them, but you have to say it in the right way. Yeah, I was just going to say it in the right way or they'll take offense.
But you're right. I think a lot of people are scared. They're scared that, you know more than me. You can take my position tomorrow, or, you know, the boss doesn't like me today, so you're fired, and now he takes over. You got to get over that crap.
Yeah, and you have to
got to get over it.
Like one of the One of the big things with me was, and I feel like we talked about this in like episode 1, was
you're dating yourself.
Yeah, right. The probies. You know, there's the whole thing, probies, shut up, you know, you're seen, you're not heard. But you might have a probie that works on oil burners or is an electrician or works on something that we deal with somewhere in the field where if we were doing a drill on it, I would turn and be like, don't you like work doing X, Y, Z? Yeah. How does this thing work? Can you teach us? Mm-hmm. Learn from each other. And then,
well, they got to teach the right stuff. They don't need to know everything. They just need to know what's important to firefighters.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I know what you're saying, but
you know, just certain things.
But that's about knowing your audience when you're teaching a class. That's about
No, I know, but
asking people for help.
Right, but it also teaches the other people, you know, the other members of your company that, it's not just one guy that's teaching us, or who's, you know, we're all working, you know, you say it all the time, mission driven.
One.
That's one. It's only one today. You know, that's what you want to be.
But that's true. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, presenting yourself and say, hey, you know, I used to do this, you know, or I know a little bit about this. There's nothing wrong with that.
For sure.
I mean, sometimes it's not going to be pertinent. Other times it will be. But, you know, I've learned things from students just from teaching, you know, because, you know, I'm a mason or I'm a construction guy. And it's not, all right, what do you have to add here? You know, like, how is that pertinent to what we're doing or whatever? Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. It just depends.
I think we probably only have time for one more.
A lot of stuff.
And
I love it, though.
No, this is great. Gives us shit to talk about. This guy, I think we slightly talked about it last episode, but straight stick versus bucket truck. This guy's animate, wants to know.
It really depends on your jurisdiction, your department, you know, what do you have mutual aid wise, you know, do you have to have everything in your district? I mean, you should be fairly self-sufficient, but it really depends. It really does. I mean, I like the versatility of a bucket. Reason being, I can do a lot more with it. You know, it's easier to cut off. It's easier to rescue people. It's easier to do work off of. Master stream, I could flow a lot of water. You know, there's so many different things. But on the other side of it is it's a little slower. You can't get it into every position, where a stick you can. So then it gets into distance, reach, stuff like that. So, you know, people say, why do you need a 100-foot ladder? Well, if every house is 60 feet off the street,
Yeah.
all right, and you're setting up in the middle of the street, you know, if you have a 75-foot ladder, it ain't going to reach. So, you know, it's very dependent on where you're responding to, where you can get to, you know, can you turn the streets? Do I need a tiller? Do I need a straight stick? You know, so there are options.
I will say this. A big difference between the bucket and the straight stick, that's where you're going to find the difference between boys and men. Climbing or being in a bucket,
I mean,
that's 100 feet up
well,
in the air.
you could still, I mean, a ladder tower these days, you know, it has a ladder with a bucket at the end. So you could still wind up climbing it. But yes.
What I'm saying is,
I mean, I've climbed straight up.
there's a lot more comfort in being in a bucket
absolutely.
than there is on the edge of a fucking
You know,
straight
some people
stick.
don't like heights either way. It doesn't matter. You
For
know?
sure.
And that's one area that we are still protected somehow.
Yeah, climbing up a fucking ladder.
You know, but, you know, well, overall, I mean, if you look at OSHA standards, you know, and
What's the number, Kev?
let's not get crazy with this crap. No, we're not doing numbers. But, you know, people are going to say, oh, this guy's an idiot. No, I'm not an idiot. But if you work at height as a worker in the regular workforce, you have to be secured with some sort of tether. Mm-hmm. We climb tower ladders 10, 11 stories, 100 feet high with nothing holding us from falling. Nothing. Most tower ladders and buckets and stuff like that have some sort of tether system that when you're in the bucket and you're operating, you should be hooked up to it, or some sort of retractor, you know, and we've lost many firefighters that have fallen out of buckets.
Yep.
You know, New York City lost William Tolley not too long ago, but we lost Harold Hoey back many years ago in my company in the South Bronx that, you know, got pendulumed out, fell 6 stories due to the hydraulics and getting caught. And I won't get into all of that. But anyway, if you're at the top of an aerial, you know, we recommend that you use a ladder belt, hook yourself in, that you don't fall and all this stuff. But when you're transversing on a ladder or climbing straight up, there's nothing.
There's also, you have to have a lot of fucking trust in your chauffeur that's operating just a straight stick. Because at the bucket, yeah, you could have a guy.
Well, you shouldn't be moving it once there's a person on it.
Well,
you shouldn't be moving a straight stick.
That's
when there's a
true.
person on it.
But do you remember? And I don't remember where this was. This is an old video. I think it was an apartment complex in the middle of being built. So it was like all that, like the Tyvek shit.
Right.
Complete inferno. There's a worker on a balcony.
Yes, I did see that video. Yes.
And they bring the straight stick up there.
Mm-hmm.
Firefighter basically like sprints up that ladder, grabs this dude, and they start retracting that ladder with the both of them on it.
Good.
And that fucking, the whole wall came flying down
Yep.
on fire. And they missed it by they made the rescue, but, you know.
So, you know, the way a straight stick is built is a lot different than a ladder tower or a tower ladder. They're obviously a lot stronger. They can move a lot more water, a lot more weight, and everything else. So, you know, and straight sticks have failed, you know, due to one rail being on something and the other rail off, and it twists due to the weight. So, you know, there are so many factors when you get into them. You know, we think they're super strong, and they are very strong. There's no debate about that. But if they're used improperly, or they touch at the wrong angles, you know, even they tell you with an aerial, it should not touch, right? It should be 2 to 6 inches above the roof level or window, that if it comes down, it just barely touches it. It's not meant to be put any pressure in another way, because it's built basically like a truss, right? It's meant to were cantilevered. That's the way it's meant. And, you know, if you're not a good chauffeur, you put it in the wrong thing or it stresses the wrong direction, it can twist, it can fail. And that's where you got to start looking at things. Now, if you're looking at a price kind of situation, yeah, obviously a tower ladder or a ladder tower is going to cost more than a stick. But they're all pretty close nowadays. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, no.
I mean, tower ladders are $2 million or more. So it just really depends on your district. You should take a good look at it. My personal opinion is you can do a lot more with a ladder tower or a tower ladder than you can with a straight stick. But they both have their reasonings and preferences depending. So there's sometimes you can't get a tower ladder into position, but you can get a stick into position. Tight areas, it reaches further, you know, there's so many factors.
Right.
So, you know, my department now, we have 2, you know, and people say, oh, why do you need 2 ladder trucks? Personally, I think we should have 3. But we have a large district. We have a lot of nursing homes. We have a lot of big buildings. So we have a Pierce tower ladder, 100-footer, and then we have a 107-foot ascendant straight stick depending on where we're going and what we're doing. The other part of that is we also carry more 35-foot ladders because we have ladder trucks. So, you know, your engines mostly are 24s.
Yeah.
So if you have bigger buildings or you have buildings that are on grades, so we have a lot of private houses that are on grades, you know, where it's 3 or 4 stories in the rear yard. You need a 35-foot ladder to get to those windows.
Right.
So, you know, if you're just running engines or you're never going to reach these buildings. So between the nursing homes that we have, between the university and the bigger buildings, now we have multiple ladder trucks. We have multiple 35-foot ladders, and then our surrounding companies or departments that come in, there are additional ladders on top of that. But God forbid we need to get a lot of people out of buildings quickly, we can do it.
Well, it sounds like there's your answer.
Yeah, well, like I said, there's a
No,
lot
no,
to
there's
it.
a lot-
You know,
there's
there's
so many
departments on Long Island right now that are contemplating, you know, looking at new ladders, and they have straight sticks now, and they're thinking about maybe going to a ladder tower or a tower ladder because of the versatility.
Yeah, and
So,
you know, it all depends.
you know, and then some people say, well, the neighboring district's got a tower ladder, so we don't need one because we'll just call them. Well, what happens when theirs is out of service? Or what happens when they're at a run and they can't come to you?
Right.
You can't always prepare on everybody, but you don't need everything that everybody else has either. So
Yeah, there's a
you gotta
lot of
weigh it all
thought
out.
that's got to go into that. How your district is. Are there any obstacles in your district? You know, you'd mentioned like I know up on the North Shore, some of the older towns over there that could probably use a tiller, you know, to some extent. 'Cause
Yes,
there's a lot of tight.
there's some tight
but
streets.
there's the tight to the point and where the buildings are that the balconies come out over the street that you can't turn a fucking fire truck or you're going to smack the balcony.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're like trying to think if you need to buy a straight stick or bucket truck, a lot has to go into that.
Oh,
Everything you just
it's
talked
a big
about,
thought, you know.
understanding your district. Is there a train trestle in your district that a ladder truck can't get underneath?
Yeah, we have-
that's under a main road, you know, like.
We have some tight spots with train trestles, so but that's like you said, it's knowing your district, it's knowing your response area, it's knowing what is actually needed for your community. But don't just buy things indiscriminately. You should really do some good research. You should talk to people. What is the best avenue for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that about wraps it
That's
up.
a wrap. A lot of good stuff tonight.
A lot of good stuff, and we'll definitely, you know, I'll put this out every week, just to see kind of what everyone's dealing with out there, and we'll try to answer honestly and to the best of our ability, and hopefully help you guys out. But
Don't yell and scream at people on camera.
that was the last one I had.
I'm sure it's on there. So.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you got less than 10 minutes.
Oh, now I got a timeline. Now
No,
we're
I
gonna
don't
go
have
into
a timeline.
it.
I just
You wanted to pack it up. Now you want to talk.
I know Ryan's ass is probably hurting on that stool over there.
So what I'll say is this: right, wrong, indifferent, or whatever. You got to realize, and we've said this many times, we are in the people business. We deal with people on a regular basis, whether it's us, people in the firehouse, your company, outsiders, politicians, and everything else. And I still have to make a phone call on the other one. But we're always on camera, wherever you are. You know, whether you're standing next to a Tesla, whether it's a dash cam, whether it's a ring camera, a blink camera, or anything else that's out there, arrows, you name it. And now with the cops with all these body cameras, there's cameras literally everywhere. So just always keep that in the back of your mind. And anything you say or do, and I know this guy's getting beat up a lot. I don't think he entirely deserves it.
No.
But once again, we're in the public eye 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you're going to, be in any of these types of positions and dealing with people, you have to be reasonable and think accordingly. All right. So
the thing about this one that sucks though is it went like I like my
everything goes viral
my
now.
regular friends like, yo, what do you think about this? I was like,
oh yeah,
it's a problem, and I'm sure there's a backstory to this.
Oh, there's a big backstory to this
backstory
one.
because you typically,
and I'm not defending either side of it.
Right.
I'm really not. There's articles that have come out about it's really not his fault, or let's back this guy, or let's not back this guy, or whatever this is. I really don't care. In the end of the day, just always remember you could be viral tomorrow.
Yep.
That's just the way you got to look at things. What you say, what you do, how you act, what you wear. Spot the Volley Chief, everything else, it's out there. And, we are in the limelight now that you could ever imagine. Like I said, it takes 2-second clip. We put it out there. You look like shit tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's that easy. So,
plus the fact that
they won't show you the whole video. And this has gone on for many years with the news media and everything else, right? They show you this little clip of 10 seconds, not showing you what happened before, not showing what happened. They just show you that little bit to get everybody ramped up.
That's all it is. They
And
want
that's
to
all
drive.
it is.
They want to drive the clicks.
They want to drive people apart. They want to make us all look bad. But we have, since we started this podcast in January, and mostly all Long Island, but there have been some other things around the country. We've had a lot of incidents.
For sure.
Chiefs not wearing gear, chiefs not going into buildings. This incident, the politician, that whole thing with immigration crap, you name it down the line. It just keeps coming. It's like, what's next?
Yeah.
What are we going to have to discuss or bring up? And listen, by no means am I saying anybody's at fault on either side, anywhere. Right. I'm not trying to make people look bad. You, as a person, if you're not involved in any incident, you have to think about where your future holds when it's out there, because you may be a volley, but this can hurt your job. This can hurt your future. I used to tell my girls years ago, watch what you post. Watch what you post on your Snapchat and your Facebook and all this other crap and Instagram, you name it.
Do you want to hear a quick funny story about an incident with me?
I do, but hold on one second. But, it's amazing when people say, oh, I'm deleting all my social media accounts because I'm trying to get a job. Well, guess what? It's probably screenshotted somewhere. Somebody's got it somewhere, and they're going to use it against you. So don't be an idiot. Don't post stupid shit, whatever it is, and just be careful your demeanor when you're out in public every single day. For sure. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm guilty. I've yelled at some people in the street. I've yelled at people in double parked cars, and,
oh, yeah.
I'm not saying I haven't done it. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm not. I can tell you I'm not, all right? But I try to learn from every single thing that I've done down the line. Just don't be stupid.
Right.
We're in the people business.
Yeah, and to my story, quick one time I was...
Snapchat?
No, I was...
Napster?
Napster.
That's old school.
I remember Napster. Yeah, I remember going for a job interview one time, and this recruiter called me, and... we were talking. She's like, "Hey, can I just give you a word of advice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And she goes, "Well," she's like, "I looked you up on Facebook, and I saw
Google search
that you went to. It shows that the school you went to is fuck ass university." And she goes, "Personally, I think that's funny." She goes,
Right.
"But you might have some people that look at it." Yeah. And I was like, "Holy shit, man! That was like 10 years ago when I was in high school. I put that up there, and it's fucking still there. I had no idea."
Yep.
So yeah, to your point. Watch what you're doing, because, a lot further down the line from 10 years ago, but there's cameras fucking everywhere. Yep. So,
we have these group me's and everything else, and, there's a couple big ones on Long Island, and they change the names, and, like the one out here, the 5th Division Fight Club or whatever it is nowadays, they keep changing the name. But it's a lot of people trying to hide behind
yes
names and shit. Well, let me tell you something. we can find out who you are. I hate to say it, as much as you think you're a tough guy and you write all this shit and somebody will probably write something about me. I really don't care. But in the end of the day, you just realize you can be tracked. You can be found out. If somebody screenshots you or screenshots you when you change your name, whatever you do, they can find you.
And they will kill you.
Well, I don't know. I'm just
have to
saying,
go to
word to the wise.
Liam
And I'm
Neeson
not
line.
telling people not to do it. I think some of the stuff is hysterical. Other stuff is, very good information. Other people, but there's a lot of these different groups out there all over the place, all over the country. I've seen some funny shit, but people screenshot shit all the time and they send it. And I get stuff a lot from different people all over the place. And I'm like, they're like, hey, check this thing out. Look at this. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, why would somebody do that or say something stupid? Just be careful. That's all I'm saying is, you don't know what your future holds. If you're a young person in the fire service, you think it's really cool. It is cool. This is the greatest profession out there. This is the best people you're going to meet in your life, all different angles. You are going to have the time of your life in the fire service, regardless of where you are. You're doing something that a lot of people will never, ever get to experience. Nothing like it. They're literally, and, I've been around a little while, but literally this is the best thing that you could probably do in your life. Mm-hmm. And don't do something stupid that could hurt you down the line. Right now, you might not have nothing going on, or you think you have the best job in the world. You lose your job, you're going for a new job, and they're going to be like, hey, I saw that you posted this, this, and this. You're not getting this job.
Right.
Or we're not going to help you. Or just word to the wise. Just remember, people are always watching.
Absolutely.
So that's a wrap on episode 29.
Episode 29, that's a wrap. Thank you again, Ryan.
Ryan, thank you very much, man.
Today. And
Awesome.
we will catch you guys next week.
Excellent. That's a wrap.
All good? Sweet. A lot of good stuff.